Well, hi, and welcome to another edition of Unstoppable Mindset. Our guest today is Patti Oskvarek, and Patti is a person who specializes a lot in work-life balance. She's a Reiki manager or master and has a lot of information I think that's going to be of value to all of us. She is a coach that really works a lot in the whole area of work-life balance. So I'm really interested to hear a lot about that. I met Patti, as we have had a number of other guests come this way, through Potapalooza. This time it was the latest Potapalooza in Potapalooza 11. And it just seemed like Patti was a person we really needed to have an unstoppable mindset. And here we are. So Patti, I want to welcome you to the podcast and thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Michael. This is great.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start? Why don't you tell us a little bit kind of about the early Patti, growing up and all that stuff?
So growing up, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and I was an only
Hot weather
child.
in the summer.
Yes, very hot. And I was an only child. So I was very shy during my times of growing up and through life. And my first job, I worked in a Derry Queen. And when I turned 18, I became a manager. And that's kind of how I started with management. And throughout my life, I pretty much have been a manager or supervisor. And in my life, I didn't have work-life balance. Work always seemed to come first, and everything else came second. And as you know, Michael, that's not always a good thing, having work come first instead of having a personal life as well.
Right.
So I had a lot of regrets because I had put work above other things that were important. So I became a coach to help others in leadership and work-life balance so that they can learn from my example. And I wish I had had a coach when I was in leadership. And I've learned a lot through my life about working 24/7. And then eventually, what if work is gone? What are you going to do in your life? But I have a family. I have 2 adult children and a husband and a cat. I love my cat and I love my family, and I have 5 grandchildren. So throughout my life, it's been wonderful. And I love my family. And I've learned through the years of really trying to incorporate some work-life balance so that you can live life to the fullest.
Well, tell me, so how long ago was it you were a manager of a Dairy Queen? What year was that?
That was in the 80s.
Okay. So what was it like managing a Dairy Queen in the 80s? And what I'm really curious about is if you can make the comparison, what was it like then as opposed to what it is now? You must have visited Dairy Queens of relatively recent times, maybe not, but I'm just curious if you can observe or comment on what it was like then and how it differs now.
Yes, so that was my first job, and it was surprising because most of the time I worked alone and didn't have really the interaction with the staff other than, between times of when they would come in and tell them what needs to be done and all of that kind of stuff. So where I worked, it wasn't as busy in the winter time as it was in the summertime. In the summertime, I would work with the employees, but in the wintertime, a lot of times I worked alone. So how is that different now? In the Dairy Queen that I worked at, all we had was ice cream. So that's
Mhm.
why it was a lot different. Nowadays, you see how much different it is with, the drive-through and all the employees and having all the different variety of products and services.
You think it's
Then it,
tougher to be a manager today, um, because of all of that?
yes, I think so. I think you're under more stress and more responsibility on you than it was in the past.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I moved on to banking, and then I moved on to government. So I had a variety of different different platforms that I worked on in different ways of doing things.
Mhm. Well, it it is interesting. I think there's a lot to be said for with the way things are going, that management and managing is more stressful. And I suspect that if you went further up in the corporate structure of Dairy Queen or anywhere, that again, um, you would see that the the environment is putting more stress on the typical Dairy Queen manager because of all of the things that you're talking about, and that in general, in a sense, management is more stressful because you're expected to do more and
With less.
with less. Yeah, and I think that's really a very important point. It's doing more with less, and I'm not sure corporate always gets that, which again goes back to what you were talking about in terms of work-life balance and dealing with that. Well, when you left Dairy Queen, what did you exactly go do?
I went into banking, and
Ah,
that was, yeah, and that was in the early 80s and 90s. And a lot of things happened throughout. When I imagined that I was going to work for the bank for the rest of my life, that was my plan. Ever since I was a kid, I thought banking was where I wanted to go. So, things happened in the 80s and 90s with banking. It changed a lot. A lot of people were part-time instead of full-time. Things were a lot different from when I started to when I left and what it is today. I was actually somebody that would stand outside to get people to use the ATM and train them how to use it. And there was a lot of resistance at that time of using it. And now it's something that they use all the time.
mhm,
And as well as back then, the technology wasn't like it is today where you have an app. And so I started as a teller, and then I went to a branch operation supervisor in a very short time and at a young age. And I had employees that were older than me. And with the bank, you worked a lot of hours, and I had small children. So that was one of the reasons why I decided. A friend of mine and a former supervisor of mine, my manager, she had went to work for government, and she says, Patti, you should come too. And I thought, oh, that'll be a great way to have more balance in my life and not working so many hours. So that's where I made the change in the 90s. And I was fortunate enough to start working young and being able to retire in my 50s. So that was a good thing. But still, I struggled with the work-life balance, putting work above other things that should have been important as well, like going to my children's baseball game or things like that I couldn't do because I was working, and taking vacations and things like that. I was putting things aside for work, and I was putting that pressure on myself.
what was that doing
So,
to family?
I was fortunate that I had my husband. He would pick up the slack where I wasn't, but then I would be up at night cleaning the house while the kids were asleep. I was still I still came home at a decent hour, but I was always thinking about work and what needed to be done next and those kind of things.
Mhm. What, well, so when you, so eventually, I know we're skipping forward, but again, the job that you took up in the 90s was what again?
Banking.
Yeah. So it was all in
Oh, and
banking.
then I went into government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you retired in your 50s, why did you do that?
So I had that I could retire with 80 points, which means your age and your years of service. So I was able to do that. And I wanted to do something more. And that's where the coaching came in, is I went to school before I retired to prepare myself to get into coaching. So I had a plan, and that's what I teach people, is to have a plan of what you want to do in life and make it happen.
So what got you to the point of being such a strong advocate for the whole concept of work-life balance? Was there one thing that made that happen?
Yes, I think throughout my life, I realized that I needed to change my habits, and it affected my health. I had an ulcer in my 30s, excuse me, in my 30s. And that was a wake up call, because the doctor said, I was in the hospital for 5 days. And the doctor said to me, you need to change something in your life that's causing you to have all of this stress. And that was my first wake up call of realizing I was putting so many other things in front of what I truly wanted in my life and what I wanted to do. And slowly changing. It didn't happen overnight. It's still a struggle. And I want to help others so that they don't go through what I went through, and to help people realize there's more to life than work.
So there wasn't like a real crisis that caused you to suddenly have an epiphany and decide work-life balance and so on, and coaching was so important, but it's something that you eventually or gradually came to.
Yes. I was at a networking meeting and I was giving a presentation. And after the presentation, this lady came up to me, because I was talking about leadership. This lady came up to me and she goes, you should be a coach. And at that time, I didn't know what a coach was,
Mhm.
didn't know what a life coach was. And she goes, you would be really, really good at being a life coach. So I started checking into what is that. And I realized, oh, this is something that I could really help people. And I wish at the time I had somebody like that, a coach, a leadership coach, a work-life balance coach, that could have helped me throughout the certain challenges that I had in my career and in my life. So as I was learning about coaching, I felt this is really what I want to do. I want to help others. As well as myself, I learned a lot through the coaching process and learning about coaching. It's such an excellent thing to have in your life.
What was the process that you went through to become a coach? How did you learn, or what did you learn? How did it all kind of come about?
So this person that I knew that was an acquaintance of mine, she knew a business coach. And she put me in contact with her, and I asked her a lot of questions about coaching and how the process works. How do I be able to do this? And I was still working full time, and she put me she suggested that I go to the International Coaching Federation, ICF website and look for coaching schools. So that's what I did. I found a coaching school that was after hours or that worked with my schedule so I could work during the day and get coaching training in the evenings or before work. So it was really flexible. And that's how I started on my journey of becoming certified as a coach. And there would be sometimes it'd be 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd be doing my coaching class or things like that, or it'd be after 7 o'clock in the morning. And the first coaching school that I went to was Center for Coaching Certification. And then later on, when I got my master coaching, I went to World Coach Institute. So both of them were schools that were for people all over the world. So it had various hours that you could do your coaching certification, which worked for me at that time of my life.
So it was online.
Well, one was online, and one was where it was on phone, and we would meet that way on the phone and do it that way as well as online.
Mm-hmm.
So there was different ways of doing it. It wasn't as, during that time, the online Zoom wasn't popular as it is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's needless to say that changed a lot, of course, during the pandemic. So when did all this happen? What year was this that you started coaching?
So 2015
Okay.
was when I started. And yeah, so it's been a while. That's why it wasn't as like today where you do the Zoom calls and things
Right.
like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a lot more back in those days. It was more by phone or in person, of course, was another
Yes.
option.
Yeah.
Where did Reiki enter into it?
Reiki came into it because my husband and I had went to Sedona, and I had a friend that was a Reiki master. So I used to go to her to help me, to relieve stress and all of those things, to relax. And I told my husband, why don't you go have a Reiki session? And he loved it. He kept asking me for like a year and a half, Patti, you need to learn how to do this. And he was my biggest person that really, really wanted me to do Reiki. And that's how I got into Reiki, was my friend that I knew. And then with my husband, because he wanted me to do Reiki on him. And so incorporating Reiki, it helps you relax. It's energy healing. It helps the body heal as well because you're in a meditative state. And it really helps clients because they're under so much stress that it helps relax them and stop their mind from running, continuously. And they're able to come up with solutions or just have their body relax and heal from all the stress that they're under. And that's how I incorporate Reiki into my coaching.
Tell me a little bit about how Reiki works or what you do, if you would.
Okay, so Reiki, I hover my hands over the people's body, and I tell them to relax and just let go. And the energy flows through me into them. And some people can see colors. Some people can actually feel the heat coming onto their body. Everybody's different and each session's different, but some people feel nothing but it doesn't mean that the Reiki's not working.
Mhm.
And even if it's 15 minutes, you can feel the difference. People feel so calm and relaxed and just feel relief from the Reiki sessions.
So is Reiki something that you mainly need to do in person? Is it something that you can do in some way virtually today?
Yes, yes, I do Reiki virtually. And what I do is I have one client that I do FaceTime with. I have another that, Zoom. And we meet and either on FaceTime or Zoom. I've even done Reiki off of pictures onto to my clients, and they can actually feel the Reiki going through their body. You
Mm.
don't have to do it. You don't have to do it in person. You can do it virtually.
Which is kind of fascinating. And it's great that you can do that and still have a good, strong impact on people. So how do you work that into or integrate that into the other coaching that you do?
So for me, I will talk about, there's I have different things. I have Reiki. They can sign up for Reiki. They can sign up for leadership coaching, work-life balance coaching. I use affirmations with them too. So they can schedule me for what they would like. If they want Reiki, if they want coaching,
So
they
they're
can
somewhat
do,
different.
yeah.
Mhm.
But with Reiki, it really helps if you're struggling with something going on in your life and you just need to relax. A lot of times some ideas come up or solutions come up as well, just like coaching with asking questions and going down deep into the situation. The client always has the solution. They just need to get there to have that solution come up for them.
Well, so you certainly bring a lot of skills and offer a lot of opportunity in doing all this, which is really kind of cool. Do you find that sometimes you can integrate Reiki into um, your leadership coaching or some of the other things that you do in terms of you use that to get people to relax and be more open, or does that happen?
Yes, yes. So you can do a 15-minute Reiki session and then go into a coaching session because they're relaxed, they feel good, they're ready to open up and be able to look at things maybe a little differently than they were in their stress mode.
Hmm, okay, which certainly kind of makes sense. Do you think that you're now really doing what you were meant to do? Is this really your purpose in life, do you think?
I feel it is. I feel that it helps people and it helps people become better leaders, better people in general, because of the fact that they're taking time for themselves as well as learning skills and learning how to deal with things in different positive ways. And it helps them figure out how to handle things better because they're less stressed and more open to making positive changes within themselves and to help manage things in a better way than they were before.
Do you encounter people when you first start who are looking for a coach or whatever, but when you start to talk about work-life balance, they resist it and say, "Oh no, I'm really fine." And that you figure out ways to open them up and get them to consider new ideas.
Yes. A lot of times, people don't believe in work-life balance. And what work-life balance is to me is you find business and personal success. You must know how to find happiness in other areas of your life and learn the true meaning of work-life balance. What may be work-life balance for me will be totally different for you. We each have different life stages, goals, and likes and aspirations. And work-life balance is a continuous thing that you do continuously. It's finding what you want in your life and what you don't want in your life, and incorporating ways to get the things that you do want in life so that you feel good and you're living a purposeful, balanced life outside of work.
We've been talking a lot about work-life balance. Maybe what we really ought to do, though, is define it a little bit. So really, what is work-life balance?
So work-life balance is what really means you want in life. So say that you want to spend more time with your children, or you want to spend more time at home, or things like that. Balance isn't this perfect wheel. It's what is your priority or what you want. A lot of people that work 24/7, they have no friends. They have nothing but work. So it's incorporating, okay, what do I want in my life? Do I want a hobby? Do I want to go on vacation? What do I want in my life and how can I achieve it? And then incorporating that into your life so that you have something more than work.
What do you do with the person who just says, "Well, I really enjoy just working 24/7 or working all the time, and I don't need any of the other stuff"?
Well, then I'm not the coach for them, right?
Uh-huh.
And but I'll talk to them and we'll see why that is, or how they feel. But if they're not willing to want to have anything more in their life than work, then I'm not the coach for them. Unless they want to be a better leader, then I'll help them with those skill sets. I
But
hope
does
that
that
helps.
it does, but does that when you start to talk about leadership and so on, are you then able to work back into the discussion ever the whole concept of work-life balance so that they understand
The
work is
importance of
great,
it.
but you're not going to become your best leader if you don't spend some time doing other things or relaxing or learning about leadership, which you can't do when you're just supposedly
Working,
leading people or working. Yeah.
right. I think it's all about relationship and communication. Once they get to know you, once you're coaching them, you can work those other things into the relationship. It's all about getting to know them getting to know you, and to help ask the right questions to get them to a place where they'll be open to work-life balance. And that does happen when you build relationships with others,
Hmm.
and that they know, like, and trust you. And they start to become open to looking at things a little differently, especially when you start asking questions about what do they want in life? What are they missing in life? Those kind of things, to really open up, oh, there is more to life than just work.
Well, maybe we should also approach it from the other standpoint. What to you does work-life imbalance mean?
So work-life imbalance is when you have an unmanageable workload and deadlines and emails and texts and unproductive meetings that spill over to your personal life, which causes you overwhelm and also your employees overwhelm. And just working through those tasks and how to delegate and time management and things like that to help with the imbalance. And that happens a lot. People take on more and don't ask for help, and teaching those skills on how to ask for help so that things can be more manageable.
How would you define what it really means to be a leader? That's probably a relevant discussion to have when we talk about leadership coaching and we talk about people leading other people. What is a leader?
Well, a
What
good
are the
leader,
characteristics?
yeah, a good leader to me uh, is someone that learns from their mistakes and use tools that enhance them, such as journaling or sitting in self-reflection, and invite input from their employees and from others to come up with solutions and new ideas. A good leader listens with compassion and understanding and assists whenever possible, and is willing to stand out and be part of the solution so that they can help their goals, and to be very compassionate and listen to your employees. Find out what's going on, build a relationship of trust. That is what a good leader is to me.
Trust is a very extremely vitally important part of the process. And we oftentimes forget or just aren't really willing to deal with trust. One of the things that I say often about dogs is that dogs love unconditionally, and I think that is true, but dogs don't trust unconditionally. But the difference between a dog and a person, typically speaking, is that dogs are, at least generally speaking, unless some incredible trauma happened to them, dogs are open to trust and open to trusting, and you have to earn their trust and they have to earn your trust. And I think there's nothing better than a two-way trusting relationship between person and dog when that really happens. And I know that in working with guide dogs, it's all about developing a trust. And I think it takes a good year to truly develop the trusting relationship, but trust is an extremely important part of it. And if you don't develop that, you'll never be able to lead or truly influence what is going on in your life and others.
Oh, I love that. I definitely agree. And if you make a mistake, say sorry and explain what happened, and really opening up the communication with the person that you made the mistake with,
Yeah.
and learn from those mistakes. That's the most important thing. Reflect on it. What could I have done differently? And always keep that in mind when you're making decisions. Really think it out. And there are times when you can't. I understand that. But you're doing the best that you can, and you learn every day from those life lessons to be a better manager, a better leader, a better person, a better parent, a better spouse, all of those things. Each day you learn something new, and you continue on to do the best you can and to continue to be compassionate and empathetic to others.
One of the things that I would say about leadership and leading is that leaders have to really work at understanding the talents of the people who work for them or who they lead. And the part of the reason for that is there may very well be times that someone else is better suited to take the lead in a particular situation. And the good leader knows when to allow that person to excel and lead and take control to deal with whatever comes along. And then the leader who is overall responsible can then step back in when necessary. But good leaders know when to give up leadership to those who are better talented and better suited for a particular situation than they.
No, I definitely agree with that. It's so important to know who to give tasks to and not to micromanage. And what I found in leadership is they'll come up with some great ways to do things that you never thought of, and to praise them for that. It's really important to give people the chance to learn and expand and grow. And that's what a leader does. They help people see things about themselves that they didn't see within themselves.
Mm-hmm. And help them bring that gift out.
Yes.
I once attended a seminar um, conducted by an organization. It was a leadership seminar, and the person running it was long-term president of the organization. And he asked a question on one night, the Saturday night of the seminar. He said, "What is the most important thing that he as president and all of us should be doing in the organization?" And people talked a lot about the vision and the mission and other things like that. And he finally said, "But that's not the most important thing. The most important thing that we have to do is look for the next president and leader of the organization." And his ego was such that he was willing to recognize that the time would come that he would need to retire, and that someone else did need to take the reins of the organization. And that in fact did happen. But I thought it was a very profound statement on his part to say the most important thing we could be doing is looking for the next long-term leader of the organization, because otherwise the organization's not going to survive.
Yes, that's so true. And helping your staff learn new things and to train them in a variety of things, and even in your position, does good for you, does good for them, and does good for the organization. I
Yeah.
always I always trained my staff that if I left, and that's what I did, is they could run everything without me there. And that's so important.
One of my philosophies when I was running a sales organization and being a sales manager and so on is I always said to employees, "I'm not here to boss you around. I hired you because you convinced me that you could sell the product. But what you and I, and it's an individual thing with each employee, what you and I need to do is to figure out how I can add value to what you do and enhance what you do to make you more successful." And not everyone got that.
Right. Yeah, it's very important. And that's very important to learn how to communicate with each staff member. You're going to communicate differently with each staff member because they're different individuals and they think differently and they have different wants and needs. And being a good leader, you figure that out. There's going to be some people that want to move up, and there's going to be some people that just want to stay in the same job. But you help expand them and them grow in the way they want to help in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And and some people just want to stay in the job. They don't have the aspiration to become boss or whatever, and that's okay. But they certainly still have good talents that you want to be able to help expand and integrate into the organization.
Right. And giving them new things to do and try really opens up for them to feel successful and to figure out, oh, maybe this is what I want to do. Everyone's a leader. Even the people that don't want to be a leader, they're a leader in some way of what talents they have and how they show those talents and how they work and things like that. And a lot of people don't recognize that.
Tell me, if you would, something about your style as a coach. I think every coach and every person has different styles of doing things. So what's your style?
Well, as we talked about before, I'm unique in my leadership and work-life balance coaching because I incorporate Reiki and affirmations during my coaching session. And I love helping others find their passion and their purpose and the confidence in all that they do. And I coach the whole person, whether it's work and personal life, because both of them affect each other. And that's my unique coaching, because when I start coaching somebody, we first begin with one thing, and then eventually we figure out there's more that's uncovered of what they really truly want coaching on.
So as a coach, what is it you really do? I mean, by that, what really is the purpose of a coach when when they're interacting with someone?
So a coach asks questions to help the person solve whatever they're wanting to solve. And by those questions, the person being coached has the answers and solutions, and they develop those solutions. As you ask those questions, it opens up things that they never thought about and really comes to what is really going on and what they really want and what they really want to achieve, and having an action plan to do it. If I just tell somebody, oh, this is the way you should do it, people aren't going to do it. They have to come up with that action plan within themselves to really invest in it and really want to do it. And that's where a coach comes in. Say you have a struggle with an employee and you really don't know what to do. And just talking to somebody about it is so important, because a lot of times managers and supervisors and middle management don't have anybody to talk to. They're being squeezed from the top and the bottom, right? And they feel like they have nobody to really share what's going on. And at home, your spouse or your loved ones don't want to hear it, right? So a coach helps open up that communication and to come up with solutions to what that situation is, and to also be there to listen to the person. Everybody wants to be heard.
Yeah, a lot of truth to that. And one of the things that I read when I was studying up on coaching and so on was that very thing. You don't even necessarily have to have the answer, even though you think, well, you may or may not even think you do, but you don't need to know the answer, at least initially. But it is all about asking questions and getting your client to explore.
Yes.
And that is such a cool thing. Um, and it is something that is as valuable in coaching as it is in teaching or whatever you do. It's really important to get people to explore and figure things out for themselves. And you can guide, but you can't give people the answers. It never works.
Right. And when they come up with what they're going to do or how they're going to approach the situation, or even practice how they're going to deliver it with your coach, it's much more successful because you really want to do it.
Well, coaching has certainly gotten a lot more popular over the past, 10 to 20 years. It certainly isn't something that we used to hear a lot about when you were back at Derry Queen and all that. Coaching wasn't something that people talked about, much less work-life balance. So we've we've come a long way, I would think.
Yes, we have. Like I said, when I first heard of coaching, I didn't know what it was.
It's a growing industry, and for people who do it and do it well, it's a very successful industry. And I'm sure that you would say it's financially successful, but even more important, it's successful because you are rewarded when you see your clients succeed and become better than they were. Can you share any kind of stories of someone you coached and kind of where they started and where they ended up being a whole lot better than they were? You don't need to obviously mention names or anything, but just curious if you have a story that comes to mind.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a client that he wants work-life balance, and he also wants to write a book. So we worked on incorporating action to be able to find the time to write the book and to continue to write the book and be motivated about writing the book because he has something important to share with the world, and to keep that up and to not let go of that dream, and to work through those fears of failing not to write the book or complete the book. So that's one way of incorporating work-life balance into something that you want to achieve. And that's what I worked with him on. He's continually writing his book. And when he and I help motivate him and help him continue to know that that's something important for him that he wants to do and complete. So that's kind of a situation with the work-life balance is, okay, how am I going to write this book and get it completed by the time the deadline and all of those things? So it's incorporating action and actually following through with it and making sure that the book is being completed.
It's not the easiest thing in the world to write a book.
No.
But on the other hand, I think that most everyone has stories to tell. They may not know how to write a book, but they probably have the contents of a book inside of them somewhere.
I definitely agree. And it was working through some of the fears of what had happened in the past of not being able to finish a book.
Hmm.
So getting past those fears and getting past everything and being dedicated to time management and all the things of getting and writing that book.
So is he still working on it or has he written his book?
Yeah, he's still working on it. It's a
Still
current
working.
client, but I wanted to kind of give an example
Cool.
of how you work work-life balance into something else that you want to achieve.
How's the book coming along?
Good. He's really motivated and he's spending time each day writing the book. So
Eh,
it's coming along.
That's exciting. Any idea when, or does he have a goal as to when he wants to have it completed?
He wants to have it completed by next year.
Okay.
So he's on the right track. It's writing all of his ideas and writing it, and then you got to go through the other stuff that's after it, as you know.
Yeah. Have you written a book?
I have been in a collaboration of a book. I've wrote a chapter. I haven't wrote a full long book, but I do write blogs.
Well, maybe that will happen someday, but the fact that you've written a chapter and you're collaborating on a book certainly adds value and helps too.
Yes, it does.
So, how does I think again this is something we've kind of gone over a lot of this, but how does coaching overall help people in the workplace and in their individual lives? And when should people look for a coach?
Good question. So coaching is really good for individuals who want to achieve something, but don't really know how to get there or need a little help getting there. And we're there to listen and ask questions and get you to where you want to be. Everybody can use a coach. Even coaches need coaches because they help you achieve things that you never thought were possible and dreams come true.
And I've actually talked to several coaches who have made that very same point. Even coaches need coaches. And the value is, of course, both sides learn when that happens.
Yes. It's the most wonderful thing that's ever come into my life.
So do you have a coach?
I do. I do.
In addition to your husband?
Yes. And my children.
Well, there's that too. Yeah. Your cat.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
your cat's your boss, but still.
Yes.
Well, so so where are you located?
I'm in Arizona.
You're in Arizona,
Mhm.
but do you coach all over the world or mainly around Arizona or what?
Yeah, I coach virtually, so all over the world. I take
Well,
clients from all over the world.
that's pretty
Yes.
exciting.
Yes.
Well, if people want to get a hold of you and want to explore working with you and having you help them or whatever, how do they do that and where do they go?
They go to my website, which is coachingforinspirationwithpatti.com, and Patti spelled Patti.
Say that one more time.
Coachingforinspirationwithpatti.com, and Patti is spelled Patti.
Okay. And is there anything that they should specifically look for when they go there? Or how do they
So,
start?
okay. So I have my about page, I have my coaching page, I have just my blog. Everything's on my website. So if you want to schedule coaching with me or Reiki with me, you just go to the coaching page or the Reiki page.
Now you do other things like podcasts, don't you?
Yes, I have 2 podcasts. One is called Building Better Relationships at Home and at Work with Angela and Patti. And Angela is my co-host, Angela Ambrosia. And then I have a 5-minute or so podcast, mini podcast called Exploring Life and Work with Patti. And I talk about managers and supervisors situations in their work life and their home life. And it's called Exploring Life and Work with Patti from Chaos to Calm.
Mm. And where can people find the podcasts?
On Spotify or any of the listening platforms. And I'm starting to put them on YouTube, on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I started doing that with Unstoppable Mindset in 2022. And although still the majority of people listen to the podcast, there are people who like to watch the YouTube podcast as well. So we do that.
Yes.
We accommodate our sighted friends.
Yes. Yeah, I'm still in the beginning process of putting all my episodes for both onto my YouTube channel, but that's one of my goals is to successfully do that as well. So I have a few on there.
Well, that's
Still
cool.
working on it.
Well, I want to thank you for being here with us for this hour. This has been very enjoyable and a lot of fun, and I thought it would be, and I'm really glad that we had a chance to do it. And, um, if you ever want to come back, you're always welcome. If you have more things that you want to talk about, we'd love to have you come back and chat with us some more. I think it would be a lot of fun, but I really am grateful that you came. And I'm very grateful that all of you listened to us out there today. We really value your input. So please let us know what you thought of our podcast. I'm sure Patti would like to hear. Please go visit her at coachingforinspirationwithpatti.com. But I'd like to hear from you, and you can email me. It's easy. It's Michael, HIMICHAELHI at accessibe, ACCESSIBE.com. or go to our podcast page, which is www.michaelhingson.com/podcast. Michael Hingson is spelled MICHAELHINGSON. So michaelhingson.com/podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Love your thoughts. And please, wherever you're listening to us, give us a 5-star rating. We value that a lot. We hope that you'll like us well enough to do a 5-star rating, but we do want to hear your thoughts. And Patti, for you and for all of you listening, if any of you know of anyone else who ought to be a guest on our podcast on Unstoppable Mindset, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know. We're always looking for guests. We will respond, and we'll take your advice very seriously and probably draft your guests to, or your ideas to come on as guests on the podcast. So once again, though, Patti, I want to thank you for being here. This has been incredibly enjoyable, and I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for having me.